You check your phone, it's February 9th, Monday. Nothing strange about that, right? But here's the thing, someone decided that. Someone decided February comes after January. Someone decided there are 7 days in a week. Someone decided that right now, as you're watching this, it's the year 2026. And that someone? They weren't just organizing time, they were organizing you. The calendar you live by isn't some neutral tool handed down by the universe. It's one of the most powerful instruments of control ever created. And once you see how it works, you'll never look at a date the same way again. We're going to trace the real story of how calendars became weapons of power, how rulers used them to control harvests, predict the future, and literally rewrite history. How the calendar you use right now is the result of political battles, religious warfare, and one pope's obsession with Easter. By the end, you'll understand why something as simple as naming the days of the week was actually a declaration of whose gods mattered and whose didn't. Let's start where all power starts, with the people who claimed to speak for the sky. Ancient Mesopotamia, around 3000 BCE. You're a farmer. Your survival depends on knowing when to plant. Too early, the floods haven't come yet and your seeds wash away. Too late, the dry season kills everything. But you can't read the sky. You don't know astronomy. You don't have the tools or the training. The priests do. They watched the moon. They tracked the stars. They knew that after 12 lunar cycles, the Tigris and Euphrates would flood. They knew when Venus appeared in the morning sky versus the evening. They kept records on clay tablets that nobody else could read. And here's what made them powerful. They didn't just know when to plant. They decided when to tell you. The calendar wasn't public information. It was sacred knowledge, locked inside temples. If you wanted to know when the new year began, when the festivals were, when to sow your fields, you had to ask the priests. You had to give them offerings. You had to acknowledge their authority. This wasn't unique to Mesopotamia. In ancient Egypt, the priests controlled a 365-day calendar that predicted the Nile's flooding. They were the only ones who understood it. The pharaoh derived his legitimacy partly from the fact that he had access to this cosmic knowledge, or at least the people who did answer to him. Controlling the calendar meant controlling agriculture. Controlling agriculture meant controlling food. Controlling food meant controlling everything. But here's where it gets even more fascinating and darker. Because once you control time, you can do something truly insidious. You can control the past. Ancient Rome, around 45 BCE. The Roman calendar was a mess. It had started as a 3-4-day year with 10 months. Yes, 10. That's why September, October, November, and December have names that mean 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th because they used to be. But a 3-4-day year doesn't match the solar year. Seasons drift. Planting times become unreliable. So the Romans added 2 months, January and February, and gave the priests, called the pontifices, the power to add extra days whenever needed to keep things aligned. Except the pontifices were also politicians. They added days to extend the terms of friendly consuls. They shortened years to rush enemies out of office. The calendar became a tool of political manipulation so blatant that by the time Julius Caesar came to power, the calendar was off by 3 months. Caesar fixed it. He created the Julian calendar, 365 days with a leap year every 4 years. Rational, mathematical, based on the sun, not the moon. But he also did something else. He renamed the month of Quintilis after himself, July. His adopted son Augustus did the same thing, August. The calendar wasn't just reformed, it was branded. Every time a Roman citizen mentioned the date, they were speaking the names of their rulers. The passage of time itself had become imperial propaganda. And this pattern, this using the calendar to legitimize power, it never stopped. Fast forward about 500 years and there's a pope with a problem. Easter is on the wrong day. And if he can't fix it, Christianity might fracture even further than it already has. The year is 1582. Pope Gregory XIII is staring at a calendar problem that's been building for centuries. Remember Caesar's Julian calendar? It had a leap year every 4 years. That's close to the actual solar year, but not exact. The real solar year is about 365.24219 days. The Julian calendar assumed 365.25. Doesn't sound like much, but that tiny discrepancy added up to about 11 minutes per year. Over 1,600 years, those 11 minutes had accumulated into 10 full days. The spring equinox, which was supposed to fall on March 21st, was now happening on March 11th. And that mattered because Easter is calculated based on the spring equinox. Easter was drifting. In a few more centuries, it would be in summer. For the Catholic Church, this wasn't just embarrassing, it was existential. Easter is the most important day in Christianity. Getting it wrong meant the entire liturgical calendar was wrong. So Gregory did something audacious. He deleted 10 days from existence. October 4th, 1582 was followed by October 15th, 1582. 10 days just gone. People went to sleep on a Thursday and woke up on a Friday 2 weeks later. The dates in between never happened. This was the Gregorian calendar. It fixed the drift by making leap years slightly more complicated every 4 years except years divisible by 100 unless also divisible by 400. It's the calendar we still use. But here's the thing, not everyone adopted it. Because accepting the Pope's calendar meant accepting the Pope's authority. And a lot of people weren't willing to do that. Protestant countries refused the Gregorian calendar for centuries. They'd rather be astronomically wrong than religiously subordinate to Rome. England and its colonies didn't adopt it until 1752. That's 170 years later. By then, they had to delete 11 days. People rioted. There were conspiracy theories that the government was stealing 11 days of their lives, 11 days of wages, 11 days closer to death. Russia held out until 1918. The October Revolution actually happened in November by the Gregorian calendar. They just kept the name. Greece didn't switch until 1923. Think about what that means. For centuries, different parts of Europe were literally living in different dates. Catholic France might be 10 days ahead of Protestant England. Writing a letter across borders meant converting dates like converting currency. This wasn't just inconvenient, it was ideological. Your calendar declared your allegiance. It said whose version of Christianity you followed, whose authority you recognized, whose reality you inhabited. Even today, some Orthodox churches still use the Julian calendar for religious purposes. Christmas falls on January 7th by the Gregorian calendar, not because they're confused, but because they're making a statement. The calendar is never neutral. Let's talk about something you've never questioned. Why are there 7 days in a week? The month makes sense. It's roughly one lunar cycle. The year makes sense. One trip around the sun. But 7 days? Where does that come from? The answer is ancient Babylon, and it has everything to do with the 7 celestial objects you could see with the naked eye. The sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Each day was ruled by one of these celestial bodies. The 7-day week spread through the ancient world, adopted by Jews, then Christians, then Muslims, until it became nearly universal. But here's what's fascinating. The days of the week are named after gods, and which gods they're named after tells you who conquered whom. In English, we use a mix. Sunday and Monday, the sun and moon. But Tuesday through Friday, those are Norse gods, Tyr, Woden, Thor, Frigg. Why Norse gods in an English calendar? Because when Christianity spread to Germanic tribes, they mapped Christian timekeeping onto existing pagan structures. Tuesday is Tyr's day, but it corresponds to Mars's day in Latin languages, Mardi in French, Martes in Spanish. The Romans conquered with swords. Christianity conquered with calendars. Every time you say Wednesday, you're speaking the name of Odin. Every time you say Thursday, you're invoking Thor. These weren't just convenient labels. They were the remnants of belief systems, now domesticated into the structure of Christian time. The calendar is a graveyard of defeated gods. And it's not just gods that got erased. Entire ways of understanding time itself were wiped out. The Mayans had a calendar system so sophisticated it wouldn't accumulate a single day of error for 5,000 years. It tracked multiple overlapping cycles. The 260-day Tzolk'in, the 365-day Hab, the 52-year calendar round, and the long count that measured time from a mythical creation date in 3114 BCE. It's more accurate than the Gregorian calendar, But you don't use it. The French Revolution tried to create a completely new calendar. They wanted to destroy every trace of the old regime, including its time. They created 10-day weeks, 3 10-day weeks per month, 12 months per year, with 5 or 6 festival days at the end. Month names were based on nature: Thermidor for heat, Fructidor for fruit, Brumaire for fog. The whole system was decimal, rational, revolutionary. It lasted 12 years. Why did these calendars fail? Not because they were wrong, because they lost. The Gregorian calendar won because Europe colonized the world. It's that simple. When you control trade, banking and diplomacy, everyone has to use your calendar or be left out. Bolivia has 2 official calendars, the Gregorian one and an indigenous Aymara calendar based on agriculture. But if you want to do business internationally, you use the one Europe gave you. The calendar you follow isn't the best one. It's the one backed by the most power. You might think this is all ancient history, that we've moved past calendars as control. We haven't. North Korea uses the Juche calendar, which starts counting from the birth of Kim Il-sung in 1912. It's currently the year 114 there. This isn't quirky. It's ideological. It marks time as beginning with the state's founder, erasing the past and centering the regime. Iran uses a solar Hijri calendar. Israel uses both the Gregorian and Hebrew calendars. Saudi Arabia officially uses the Islamic lunar calendar, but businesses use the Gregorian one because the global economy demands it. Even something as simple as when the week starts is political. In the United States, calendars start on Sunday. In Europe, they start on Monday. The international standard, ISO 8601, says Monday. But the US doesn't follow it. Why? Partly religion, Christian tradition sees Sunday as the first day. Partly culture, partly just stubbornness. And then there's daylight saving time, which is perhaps the most arbitrary form of time control still practiced. Governments literally command you to change your clocks twice a year, not because of astronomy or religion, but because of energy policy and lobbying from various industries. You're still being told what time it is, so here's what you need to understand. The calendar isn't a clock. It's not measuring something neutral and objective. It's a map of power. It tells you whose gods mattered, whose empire won, whose version of reality became the default. Every time you write the date, you're participating in a system that was built by emperors and popes that erased other ways of knowing time, that still, right now, serves to organize your labor, your taxes, your obligations. February 9th, 2026 isn't just information, it's a command. It tells you where you are in the grid, when you need to work, when you're allowed to rest, how you orient yourself in the flow of days. The people who control the calendar control the rhythm of life. And now that you see it, you can't unsee it. The next time someone asks you what day it is, remember, you're not just answering a question. You're repeating the answer someone else decided you should give. If this made you rethink something you've never questioned before, you might enjoy exploring more hidden histories like this one. That's what we do here at the Origin Archive, dig into the stories behind the systems we take for granted. There's a lot more where this came from. Thanks for watching.